Hello, I'm Brigantia, Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Friday and welcome back to the Pagan Housewife. This week we're talking about doing the dishes and going beyond the dreary. Because let's face it, the whole task of doing the dishes and messing around with the kitchen sink and the dishwasher, and that's if you're lucky enough to have one. I don't currently have one where I live, so, coping. This is all very mundane stuff, and it's quite utilitarian and very, very dull. It's also likely to be overlooked for magical applications, both as the task itself and the area in general. So let's see if we can change that, bring a little bit of a magical charge into this whole thing. So first and foremost, as always, tidy up. It will be incredibly annoying to have to deal with the dishes if we're having to wrestle around to try to find the soap, to find the right scrubby thing, and where did this, and why is there a screwdriver in the sink? Can you tell I'm married to a man who's mechanically inclined? Yes, I have found screwdrivers in the sink and wondered how this was humanly possible, but it happens. And no matter who you're living with or what their interest is, sometimes things just kind of pile up in this general area of the kitchen. So someone gets the mail and they put it on the counter next to the sink and you're having to move this around. My theory is if you're having to do the more tidying you have to do before you even begin a task, the more annoying that task is going to be. So just in general, try to keep all the non-dishwashing activity banished from this area. You'll probably feel a whole lot better. The second thing is that when it comes to choosing tools, whether it's your scrubbies, your rags, or your towels, or things to organize these things, whether you have a little jar to keep the various washing doohickeys in, or whatever else it is, try to choose things that are both practical and aesthetically pleasing. Absolutely, they must be practical. They have a job to do. You need to be able to have them do them and have it be reliable. But the reality is that oftentimes it's just as easy to pick up these tools or these towels that are in a color that appeals to us as it is in a color that doesn't appeal to us. So as long as it's not, this real hefty investment to get the pretty thing, go ahead and get the pretty thing. Why should this be a sad area? It's like we talked about last week at the laundry room. Why should this be an unpleasant environment for us? And in the kitchen, even more so. The kitchen is such a heart of the home, and especially if you are in a family that really enjoys their cooking, or if you have your kitchen table in the kitchen, and that's where you commonly eat. This should be a pleasant environment, so absolutely make it pleasing to your eye. Next thing is to choose dish soaps and scents that are purifying. Obviously, anything citrus is ideal, but apple is also a really excellent choice. And this isn't something I thought about until I noticed that whenever I asked my husband to pick up some dish soap from the grocery store, he would almost always bring home apple. And it got me to thinking about the associations of apples because he just picked it for the smell, but I got to thinking about, the magical correspondences for them because I'm a witch, that's what I do. It's how my brain works. It's very busy up here. But apples have a lot to do with Arthurian legend, and specifically the Isle of Avalon, which is also called the Isle of Apples. Avalon is a place that is in between this world and the other side of the veil. It's shrouded in the mists, and in a lot of ways it was considered to be a gateway for the dead, as well as a haven for essentially the last stand of pagan priestesses way back in the day, at least in legend. Now, for this reason, because it is in between, because it's neither amongst the living, neither amongst the dead, and that Arthur himself had to pass through before he could eventually go through his regenerative cycle, apples ended up having to have a lot of magical associations having to do with passageways, transformation, letting go of what is past, and hopes of future rejuvenation. Now, obviously, it's more than a little melodramatic to tie in all of this beautiful spiritual symbolism with the everyday task of washing the dishes and shooing away the remains of food. Nevertheless, uh, as we do the dishes, and especially if we're tying what we're doing in with the apple scent and tapping into that energy, it is moving what has expired, what has passed out of the realm of the kitchen and onto its resting place. Therefore, it is an opportunity to focus on the scent of the apple dish soap and visualize energies of the house attaching to the scent and then being taken down the drain as a form of cleansing. Now, obviously, we're not going to get as much done with this as we will with other methods of cleansing, but it is something that we can do, and it can keep that general area with very fresh energies. Now, in that vein, if you've watched my earlier videos about magical housekeeping, including the ones I did way back in November, you might recall that I discussed a great deal about stagnant energy in the home and how it makes the atmosphere heavy and unpleasant and all around causes problems for us, both on the mundane and the magical level. Now, stagnant energy is prone to occur in many different places, and certainly a sink full of dirty dishes, especially if that's the habit, or there's always something dirty dishes in the sink, and you're just ignoring them, that qualifies as a hub of stagnant energy, and you just don't want that. Not in the kitchen, not in the home in general. And I have found that I feel mentally better and that the energy in the house is improved if I make sure that all the dishes are washed and put away before I go to bed each night. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to the rule. Sometimes a dish needs to soak. For instance, if I've had something bubbling away in a crock pot all night after I put the leftovers away, sometimes there's a bit of edging stuff on the crock pot, and it's just better to let it soak in nice hot water and come back to it the next morning. Another issue is that if I happen to not be feeling well, or if I'm just really, really tired, sometimes it's better to prioritize going to bed earlier, getting the extra rest that I need, over doing the dishes right then and there. But the next morning, after I've drank my tea and I have my wits about me, I make sure the dishes get done, and that way that energy is renewed, as well as making sure that everything is ship-shape and that the kitchen is in a state of readiness for when I need to use it next. Now, if you have children, don't be shy about getting them involved, whether they're having to wash the dishes by hand or making sure that the dishwasher's loaded and unloaded. That's something my brother and I always had to do when we were growing up. The reason for this is twofold, because one, they need to contribute as members of the household. For two, this takes something off of your plate because you're a busy adult and there's probably other household matters you need tending to that, the kids probably, don't need to be doing. It's more your responsibility than theirs. And also because it teaches them some responsibility. One day they will have their own household. So it's just as well for them to learn the basics of everyday housekeeping and practices about making sure that things are clean and sanitary while they're still young instead of having to play catch up as adults. So, moving on, crystals are another way to brighten up the area around the kitchen sink, but choose your crystals wisely. There's a lot of moisture in that area, obviously, and some stones can be severely damaged by moisture and water. Selenite, for example, should never be exposed to water. It ruins the crystal. I learned that the hard way, so learn from my mistakes. Clear quartz, on the other hand, is very sturdy, it's attractive, and it's multifunctional for magical uses. You can just put that right next to the sink or so on a shelf above it, and then poof, there you go. Everything's good to go, and you can tap into that whenever you want to. Another thing to consider, especially if you have quite a few dishes to do and it's going to take you a while, is to put on some music. You might try chakra music or meditation music. These would be good choices. They tend to be very soothing. And whenever you're soothed like that, it transports your spirit from focusing on this, kind of boring, irritating, mundane task to something more pleasant and even spiritual. And your thoughts take you to another place. And, you're busy getting this chore done, but your mind is more pleasantly engaged in other things. Another option is to do something that is decidedly not calming and soothing. If I am having a bad day, I will look for a metal version of traditional Norse music, and that could be extremely energizing. My theory is that if I can't get rid of my cranky energy, then I might as well redirect and channel it for good use, and kind of the metal-y Norse music does tend to help me do that. So there's lots of different things we can try to, insert a little bit more magic into this task, or to make it, easier on ourselves, more pleasant, to make it something that we just kind of do by routine rather than ignoring the task for as long as possible and then it's this big, huge deal. There are ways we can make the task less hard on us. So I hope this is the beginning of you exploring ways to do that for yourself. In the meantime, if you'd like to discuss this further, I hope you'll come visit us at Blackbird's Brew on Discord. There's a link to join in the description box below. And of course, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.